All right. You got some news, by the way, for us to get into?
Oh, yeah. I thought we'd kind of start things off with something pretty heavy, which is the 7 health benefits of cold showers. Have you heard about this trend?
I took a cold shower today.
Oh, there you go. You're on it. So there are gentler ways to start the day than with an ice-cold shower, yet the potential health benefits, warding off illness, improving mood, and helping with weight loss, could be just enough to make you consider braving the chill. Professor Mike Timpton, a psychologist at the University of Portsmouth, has spent 4 decades studying how temperature affects our health. It's a promising area of new research, and coupled with anecdotal accounts, might persuade you to turn the dial down to cold.
Can I just tell everyone this? Everything you don't want to do is good for you. That's the rule.
Yeah.
You would much rather eat barbecue than celery, but celery's better for you. You would rather have a hot shower than a cold shower. Doing stuff that's slightly painful that you don't want to do is all of life. Essentially the winners deal with and do more of stuff they don't want to do than the losers. Okay, the biggest loser you can be is a person that does 100% of the stuff they want to do and 0% of stuff they don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And you better learn to train, break, control, whatever that is yourself, and start doing stuff you don't want to do. Now, doesn't mean you don't get to do stuff you want to do a lot of the time, but it's a balance. And the more stuff you do you don't want to do, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah, it's discipline. Discipline's more effective than just motivation.
Your boss, Dennis Prager, always says this, and I completely identify with it. He goes, I consider myself a lazy person. And then people always go, but Dennis, you're not lazy. You write books, you speak, you travel, you do all these very motivated endeavors. So how can you think of yourself as lazy? And he goes, I don't act lazy, but I think of myself as lazy. I think of myself as a lazy person who must fight and defeat my lethargy. And I don't win all the time, but on a daily basis, it's a little bit of a battle.
Yeah.
And all the cold shower is one more example of stuff you don't want to do that you're doing, regardless of any physiological benefits. It's literally you just going, I'm going to walk in there and I'm going to take a cold shower. And then you go, that doesn't feel good. And then the answer is good. Get used to doing things that don't feel good because all the stuff that's good for you doesn't feel good.
Yeah. What are the benefits that you've noticed since you started doing it?
I've been doing the cold plunge / cold shower for maybe eight to 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Now, there's one immediate benefit. The one immediate benefit is you are awake when you step out of the freezing cold swimming pool or the cold tank or the cold shower. You're 100% awake.
Yeah. Which
people go, well, you're awake because you got out of bed. And it's like, no, listen, you go do a couple of shows that night in a stand-up club. You come back to the hotel 12:30 at night. You meet your buddy in the lobby at 6 a.m. to catch a 7:45 flight out of Dallas or whatever. You're not fully awake at 10 in the morning. You're still kind of sitting there. There's some cobwebs, is what I'm saying. You go into a frosty cold swimming pool and submerge yourself and sit there for 3 minutes and get out, you're fully awake.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you drank the night before and what time you went to bed. You are awake. And you just step into the shower and just stand there when it's not on and just turn the handle and get hit with freezing cold water for 30 seconds. You're 100% awake when you step out of it.
Yeah.
So physiologically, that's the good part. Second part is you started your day by doing something you didn't want to do. Right out of the gate. First thing, feet barely hit the ground from the bed. You went and you disciplined yourself a little bit. You didn't go down and have a Belgian waffle.
Yeah.
You just went, pow, cold water. Tough guy, wake up. Here we go. So you psychologically sort of get out you start your day with, I'm doing something I don't want to do, but I'm doing it. That's good. Physiologically, I can't tell anything about myself because I don't feel anything. I'm sort of dead spiritually, emotionally, physically inside. No, like
You're really selling me on these showers.
I get a B12 shot. I can't tell how I can't tell I feel any different. I really don't. But all I know is I never get sick. I never have whatever the issues that plagues the world. Well, I shouldn't say the world, the Western world. The people who always get headaches, the people who always have backaches, the people that are constantly talking about their gut and about acid reflux and having to take Pepsid AC and all the pills and all the stuff they can't eat and all the stuff that, is going to, I'd love to have a piece of cheesecake, or pasta with red sauce on, but I'm going to pay the price when I get home.
Yeah. The allergies, the sensitivities, the everything.
Zero everything all the time, which existed before the cold dunks.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
So I totally believe you on the being alert and awake. I just don't know if I'm buying some of these health benefits, like losing weight. Like, are you actually losing weight or could it be shrinkage? Like, we don't really know.
I think, so I don't think what's attached to one is what's always attached to another, which is people that take cold dunks lose weight. Well, look, the physiological part is you activate your body.
Yeah.
Your body goes into a thing. Like when
kind of like a fight or flight, right?
Yeah, it goes in, it gets, your immune system gets moving. When you step out, when I lived in the foothills of La Cañada and it would get, in the winter, we'd get into the 20s, high 20s, 28, 29 degrees on a cold night, but there'd be like frost on the rear lawn and stuff like that. You go dunk yourself into that swimming pool, you step out, you're beet red. Your body's doing something. Your body thinks it fell off a tuna boat in the Bering Straits. Like your body's trying to, I'm in a swimming pool in La Cañada, but my body thinks it's dying and it has to do something. And it activates hard. Like it goes into action quick.
Yeah.
When you get into a freezing cold tank, you can feel your behind your knees where your legs are kind of folded in and inside your elbows and your armpits.
You feel everything.
They get warm because your body's like, we're trying to salvage something here, and it gets activated, and that's why you're all red when you step out. But the reason people take cold dunks lose weight is because they're also able to say no to a donut at the office 2 hours later because they have discipline and self-control.
So why would they ruin the work that they put in?
Yeah, they're generally have a more disciplined person.
Yeah.
And then the number one answer that everyone says, I tell everyone, just do it. They go, too cold. I go, I know. I go, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. Yeah. And I go, I know. Let me just tell you something. People who do stuff, they act like you like it. They go like, do the cold thing. They go, that's for you. And not me. It's cold. I go, it's the exact same cold. I don't like it either.
People can do hard things. You usually learn the most about yourself when you're doing something hard.
Yeah, wash your own car. You don't have to do that. You could get somebody, fix your own whatever, climb a mountain. You can do it.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Totally agree. All right. So speaking of people that kind of just don't really want to necessarily do hard things or even work. So let's get into universal basic income. So there's this article called Money for Nothing, Is Universal Basic Income About to Transform Society?
No.
And essentially,
not in a good way.
Preaching to the choir. The concept of a guaranteed income is gaining traction as a solution to the impact of AI and a way to encourage more rewarding and socially valuable work.
All right. Okay. Socially valuable work, like artist, musician, fuck off. We need more diesel mechanics and welders,
we need
not
more
musicians
laborers,
and
construction
artists.
workers.
Yes. All right, number one. Okay. First up, there is no version of giving anyone free stuff that ever works. It never works.
Because there's no such thing as free stuff.
Well, I mean, there are no free lunches in nature, as Dr. Drew always says. There is such a thing as a free meal for a 9-year-old for somebody, but it doesn't ever work. It just gets them dependent and strung out. Look, we've been doing this whole welfare experiment for 50 some odd years now. It doesn't help the group you're trying to help. It doesn't help. If it helped, then I would be for it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help that group. So I'm not for it. And it hurts them and it weakens them. And I don't get why we don't get this. It's not like this is an experiment that we tried over the last 14 months.
Yeah.
It's been a couple generations.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
You're preaching to the choir. I'm a first-generation Cuban American, so I grew up hearing all of this. My parents, my grandparents, everyone. And the crazy thing about it is I just don't understand how people can think that more government involvement in these things, like your basic ability to get by, is a good thing. We've seen it over history. I mean, look at the 60s, like you were saying, with the creation of the welfare state. Okay, the government got involved. What happened? We ended up getting more people on welfare and a bigger impoverished population. And then you look at the 80s, even with Ronald Reagan. Okay, so the war on drugs, what happened? Even more people ended up on drugs.
Yes.
You look at the 2000s here with Gavin Newsom declaring the war on homelessness. How's that going?
Yeah. It never works. It can't work. It doesn't work. So we need to stop it, reevaluate it. There's I don't know, Joe, I'm going to ask you to look around. There was a clip. There's a great clip of me on the HuffPo from years ago, like 10 years ago, but I was thinking about it, talking about just basically family and education. She's taking me to task for taking Gavin Newsom to task. It's an old clip. Dawson will probably remember, but it's family and education. She wants to know about the school-to-prison pipeline, which always makes me laugh. But then there's also the one that this is reminding me of. There's another clip. There's two clips. There's the other one, which I like more, which is Anna
Kasparian with the Young Turks.
For the Young Turks.
Oh, yeah.
After I just told everyone, feed your own kids. Feed your own kids. I don't want the government feeding your kids. I don't want your kids relying on the government. By the way, is there any proof that the government does a good job of anything? And so
I just listed a few things. Not a single one.
They don't. So why would you want to depend on the most inept people in the world? California is building a bullet train that's not even a bullet train from Merced to Modesto. They're $100 billion over budget, and they haven't laid 1 foot of track, and it's been 13 years. Do you want those people in charge of your housing and your food
and feeding
and your education and everything else? I don't.
No, it is crazy. And the irony, too, in this article is they reference that they're doing case studies on this. Even here in the U.S., they're actually doing it. And they notice that between Ireland, here in the U.S., and a few other places in the U.K. where they're doing this study, they have people who have been on this program, the study, for 3 years, and they're still taking on a job on top of the study because it's still not even enough to get by.
Well, okay, listen, here's the thing, everyone. You can, as our great Gavin Newsom announced, just go $20 minimum wage.
Yeah.
$20. So all fast food workers are now going to get $20 a minimum wage, and then all they do is lay people off and raise the prices of a Happy Meal. That's it. There's just a counter move. Once you give everybody a baseline of $1,000, then everything just goes up $1,000.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Like, you know, when the government and when governments topple, it'll be like, how much for that taco? 2 billion pesos. Like, they just keep raising.
Yeah.
The peso used to be, 8 pesos to the dollar, and then at some point it got up to 2,000 pesos to the dollar. But that doesn't, you can keep raising what it's worth, but it's just worth less.
Absolutely.
So if you gave every single American $1 million, once a year, then everything would just move up.
Yeah, $1 million doesn't mean as much then.
Right.
I mean, we're seeing it right now. Look at how many fast food chains across California are closing down because it's a $20 minimum wage. Where are people thinking these companies are going to make up for that wage gap? And then it's actually hurting the workers because they're the ones that are either getting their hours cut or losing their jobs because these fast food restaurants can't afford to keep them.
We have the Young Turks clip, which I enjoy. It's old, but it's them taking me to task over saying, make your kids breakfast. Do not have the government do it. And then in the clip, I explain it's not about money. But then they explain I'm too cheap. But here it is.
I think I've become more conservative as I've gotten older, as I've had a family, you know, as people do when they get older and they have a family and they pay more in taxes and they start looking for school systems for their kids that are usable and things like that. There's a move toward a more conservative life in general as you get older. But as far as my talking points go, you know, stop shitting out kids you can't afford. You pay for their school breakfast, not because I want you to pay for their school breakfast, but because the kid should know that mom and or dad are paying for breakfast. I mean, making the effort. It's a psychological thing. It's not a matter of, I don't want to pay 39 cents a day for your kid. I don't give a fuck about that. Half the fucking government takes half my money and does whatever the fuck they want with it anyway. I mean, that's your kid's breakfast is the least of my worries. I worry about your kid and the message that's being sent to your kid by mama not making them breakfast. That's what I worry about. But my talking points have not changed. Get your shit together, get to work, stop shitting out kids, so on and so forth.
I love that video because for someone who doesn't give a shit about breakfast, he talks about breakfast throughout the entire clip.
All right, now we're going to break this down. I'm obsessed with McMuffins. Hey, who wants to go out for some home fries after the show? I'm not obsessed with breakfast. By the way, what is your job? Is your job to break down and give analysis to videotape? Because, bitch, you're not even close. I'm using breakfast as a metaphor to say I want you to take care of your own kids. So anyway, I'm not interested in breakfast. I'm pretty obsessed with breakfast.
No, and the funny thing is, have you followed the Young Turks at all the last couple years? She's actually gotten, I wouldn't say conservative by any means, but she's gotten a little more right-leaning on a few topics and is not a fan of Newsom either, which, by the way, talking shit about Newsom is my love language as someone who was born and raised here.
All right, sorry. Roll it back. Sorry. I'm obsessed with breakfast. Yeah, she's changed her stripes a little bit. Good for her. Still angry.
She's still very angry.
Video because for someone who doesn't give a shit about breakfast, he talks about breakfast throughout the entire clip. He's like, make your kids breakfast. Now, what I love about that is it's always the go-to argument by some conservatives, and usually the least informed conservatives, right? They're really angry about free lunches. And of all the issues, of all the different things that we waste our tax dollars on,
all right, let's
to go
pause.
to the issue of school lunch.
I don't feel like conservatives are obsessed with school lunches.
No, I think this might be the first time I've talked about it.
I've never. You watch the RNC? A lot of school lunch talk.
Yeah, every speech.
A lot of hot school lunch talk. Trump's always talking about school lunches when he gives those speeches.
I mean, he loves McDonald's, but that's the most I've heard about his lunch menu.
Yeah, anyway, so I'm going to go she's 0 for 2. She thinks I'm obsessed with breakfast, and my conservative talking points surround mostly school lunches, and then there's a little border talk sprinkled in. We'll sprinkle in a little border talk and maybe a little Ukraine, but it's mostly about lunch, free lunches. Okay. All right, and breakfast. Okay.
Different things that we waste our tax dollars on. To go to the issue of school lunches just befuddles me. I just don't understand it, right? But he gets into more specifics.
All right, hold on. She's befuddled by wasting the tax dollars. I'm not talking about money. I told you I don't care about money. It's in the clip you just ran. I don't care about money. I care about you having the government get in between you and your child. And feeding a child is half caloric and then half symbolic. It's it's like when you're sick and mama makes you chicken soup. Chicken soup doesn't cure anything. It's the symbolism of your mom going, I made this for you because I care, because I'm your mother. The government didn't make this chicken soup for you. I couldn't imagine the version of government chicken soup and how gray and crappy it would be missing a lot of chicken. So I don't know what she's doing with my point other than completely misinterpreting my point.
I just love that she calls it a conservative talking point because it used to just be a basic idea of teaching a man to fish. Remember?
Well, all conservative talking points are former just basic ideas that everyone knew. All right, we'll continue on. Sorry.
Don't understand it, right? But he gets into more specifics, or he gets a little more specific, I should say, in the next clip. Let's take a quick look at that.
It's the left turning conservatism into a pejorative, number one. Being conservative didn't used to be a pejorative in any stretch of the imagination. Being conservative with your money was being prudent. Being conservative as it pertained to work or investments or even, at the poker table, it was sort of prudent. It's conservative meant prudent. It was not a pejorative.
All right.
The left.
I'm tired of hearing this. But I will say this. Sometimes I listen to old tapes of me and I go, I like that guy. I agree with him.
And isn't it funny how things like a few years later we look back and we're like, that seemed so crazy at the time, but now it's not crazy. Do you remember the clip from Bill Maher with Dennis when he went on?
Mm-hmm.
And how that one it only took a matter of 3 years for that one to come back around?
Well, you should explain the clip to our listeners.
So essentially, Dennis went on Bill Maher about 3 years ago and said that the left predominantly says that men can get pregnant.
Right.
And Bill Maher and the panelists laughed in his face. And here we are 3 years later.
They did laugh.
It was wild. And they looked at him like he was some crazy conspiracy theorist. And then 3 years go by and here we are. I would love to know when that clip was from. What year?
Oh, God, it's got to be 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
10 years old. And listen, I'm right about everything all the time, 100% of the time. No one ever apologizes. No one ever goes, hey, I tore you a new a-hole 10 years ago about something you turned out to be right about. I mean, that's all COVID was.
Yeah.
All COVID was me being right about everything all the time and everyone coming after me with pitchforks. And then no mea culpas or apologies or that's not their world. HuffPo, though. HuffPo's good. Now, the chick who interviewed me on HuffPo is down the road. I don't know where she is, but she took umbrage with me telling Gavin Newsom that education and family would cure all of the stuff you're trying to fix by throwing money at the problem. He's worried about homelessness and predatory check cashing places, and I'm like, family, education. And because she's at HuffPo, she's going to call me out on my radical idea of family and education. Here it is. Sorry.
So he didn't give you a good answer as to perhaps what he thought maybe some of the systemic causes are that
he had zero.
Leave minority groups in positions where they are more likely to live in poverty and be preyed on by these types
I gave
of
him the
businesses.
answer, which is family and education, and we can all get out of this mess. And he said it was much more complicated than that. But then
it is a little more complicated than that, than just saying family and education.
Not much.
Oh, but come on! I mean, it's a system, right? Where it is much harder to get out of a certain income bracket if you're born into it. If you live in a certain neighborhood,
right?
That affects the quality.
That's why you have to focus on family and education. I mean, I'm not Christian or anything.
You're not going to solve everything.
It would solve everything, yeah.
Just family and education.
Just
what about
family
the drug war that we have that's failing? What about the school to prison pipeline? Things like this.
The school to prison pipeline, if you focused on education, I think would interrupt the school to prison pipeline.
Well, the problem is that
unless
schools
they're physically a pipeline.
Schools are maybe not focusing on education so much as they are.
All right. Everybody, you're all wrong. You're just wrong. And now, here's what you could do so you don't be wrong again in 10 years. You could just listen to me now.
Yeah.
So that'll be a way to avoid being wrong again. Anyway, she wanted to know about the school to prison pipeline. And I said, if there's physically a pipeline, then we got to get into this. But
yeah. And I mean, the tough thing is, I know Dennis talks about this, Larry Elder, someone else whom I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
Like, they all talk about this, and it really even comes down to just fathers in the home. They want to convince you that, oh, you have white privilege, you have male privilege, you have this, you that, but you really have privilege if you come from a two-parent household. Statistically speaking, you're way less likely, as she mentioned, to get involved with drugs. You're way less likely to drop out of school. You're way less likely to father kids out of wedlock. Like, you set yourself up for success so much more if you do have two involved parents.
You have much more privilege than any white privilege if you have an intact family. So a black child growing up with a father and a mother and an intact family has more privilege than a white child who's fatherless.
Yeah, and it's a solution that's like as simple as that, but they don't want you to realize
It's real
that.
basic stuff. And there's a huge argument that they always put up with it, which sounds patently insane to me. And I don't know what they're doing other than saying, look, if we do what you're saying about parents and kids and fatherlessness, then we're kind of out of a job.
Yeah.
So
who's going to be taking advantage of the welfare system?
Yeah, we spend your money on programs that don't work, and if dads stay at home, then we're not going to need to waste your money on programs that don't work because we don't need the program. So we're kind of out of a gig. That's number one. Number two, they would have to start judging certain communities who had less fathers in the home, and that's their constituency, and all they do is blow smoke up the tuchus of those people so they can get them to vote and then do nothing for them.
Absolutely. But hopefully it looks like they're losing part of that community this election round.
It'd be nice. Sabrina, let me give you a plug. PragerU, people should just go there and watch these really good 5-minute videos. And lest you think it's all political stuff, it's not. There's plenty of stuff on plenty of subjects. And you can essentially become an expert on a subject or an event in 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were even talking about earlier the difference between discipline and motivation. Motivation is fleeting, whereas discipline is consistent. And we have a whole 5-minute video on that. And it's funny because every time I work out and run, I hate running, but I run.
Right.
And I just think about that video. It's actually with Jocko Willink. So we've got a great library of videos, anything social, cultural, political, historical, economic. We're actually doing right now, it sounds so cheesy, but it's called an Econ 101 series where you literally just sign your email up and every morning at the same time you're getting an email with an econ video, which I'm actually doing because I know very little about economics aside from socially what I've kind of put together, seeing, you know, like we talked about earlier on that other story with, so there's a lot of useful information out there. Yeah, I agree. It's all there. I think I got 3 or 4 videos over there too, so you can check that out. And Instagram at Sabrina, and I'll spell it out, Kosmas, Kosmas. All right. Thank you very much for coming by, Sabrina.